I still remember the exact sound my heels made against the marble floor of the lobby that morning. Sharp and out of place, like they didn't belong there anymore. 2 security guards walked on either side of me, not touching me, not speaking to me, but close enough that everyone watching understood what was happening. I wasn't being politely walked out. I was being removed. Just 40 minutes earlier, I had been sitting at my desk on the 22nd floor, coffee still warm, inbox open, reviewing the final numbers for a quarterly report. I had personally rebuilt 3 times because something about it never sat right with me. I'd worked at Helix Dominion Group for 8 years. 8 years of late nights, skipped holidays, cancelled vacations, and the quiet pride of being known as the person who fixed impossible problems. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't political. I was thorough. That thoroughness was the beginning of the end. At 8:12 a.m., my access badge stopped working. The screen on my computer went black, replaced by a bland message telling me to contact IT. Before I could even stand up, my phone buzzed with a calendar notification I hadn't accepted. Mandatory HR meeting. Immediate. Conference room, see no agenda. No sender name. The room was already full when I walked in. HR. Legal. My division head, Martin Cole, sitting stiffly with his hands folded like he was attending a funeral. The head of compliance didn't look at me at all. No one offered me a seat. "This won't take long," HR said. Voice practiced, eyes flat. "Effective immediately. Your employment with Helix Dominion Group is terminated due to performance inconsistencies and failure to align with company reporting standards." I actually laughed. A single, disbelieving sound escaped my mouth before I could stop it. Performance inconsistencies. I was the one who had flagged the inconsistencies. I was the one who refused to sign off on numbers that didn't reconcile. I was the one who had asked, calmly and in writing, why 3 subsidiary accounts were moving funds in identical patterns just before audit windows closed. Martin finally looked at me then. His expression wasn't angry. It was afraid. "You're being escorted out," legal added quickly. "Your access has already been revoked. Any attempt to retain or distribute company materials will be treated as a violation." I didn't argue, I didn't plead. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded, collected my bag, and followed security toward the elevator while the office pretended not to watch. I caught reflections in the glass walls, people frozen at their desks, pretending to type, pretending not to see a woman who had trained half of them being erased in real time. By 8:47 a.m., I was outside. No badge. No job. No explanation that made sense. What they didn't know, what none of them could see, was that I hadn't walked into that building unprepared. 3 months earlier, when I first noticed the patterns, I did what I'd always done. I documented everything. I didn't accuse. I didn't speculate. I logged timestamps, transfer paths, authorization overlaps, shell entities nested under entities that shouldn't have been connected. It wasn't sloppy fraud. It was elegant. The kind designed to pass internal checks while bleeding billions over time. And because I'd been trained by Helix to be meticulous, I followed policy to the letter. I raised concerns through compliance. I requested clarifications. I saved responses. I kept originals. I backed up everything off-site, encrypted, time-stamped, because somewhere deep down, I knew how this usually ended for people who asked the wrong questions. I just hadn't expected them to move this fast. At 9:30 a.m., while my former colleagues were still whispering about my sudden disappearance, my phone rang. Unknown number. Washington, D.C. "Is this Elena Morales?" the voice asked. Calm. Professional. "Yes. This is Special Auditor Grant Halvorsen with the Federal Financial Oversight Bureau. We've received a preliminary packet tied to your former employer. I need to confirm. Did you submit documentation regarding Helix Dominion Group's internal fund movements? I stopped walking. The city noise around me faded into something distant and unreal. Yes, I said carefully. I did. There was a pause on the line, heavy and deliberate. Then I need you to understand something, he continued. What you flagged triggered an automatic escalation. As of 9:02 a.m., a full federal audit has been authorized. Scope includes domestic and international subsidiaries. Preliminary exposure is estimated at just over $10 billion. $10 billion. I leaned against the side of a building, the cold stone grounding me as the weight of his words settled in. They escorted me out this morning, I said quietly. Yes, he replied. We're aware. That timing is noted. By noon, news vans were pulling up outside Helix Dominion's headquarters. By 1, the board had called an emergency session. By 2, trading in Helix-linked instruments was temporarily halted pending investigation. Internal emails began leaking. Executives stopped answering calls. By the time the sun started to dip behind the skyline, the building that had thrown me out like a liability was sealed floor by people with badges far more powerful than mine had ever been. And that was only the beginning. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't luck. It was the inevitable result of a system that believed silence could be bought and integrity could be removed with a security escort. They thought walking me out would end the problem. They never realized it was the moment everything truly began. The next morning, Helix Dominion Group no longer felt like a company. It felt like a crime scene. At 6:18 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Same DC area code. This time the voice was more direct, less formal. Auditor Halvorsen didn't bother with pleasantries. We've frozen 47 accounts across 3 continents. Your documentation accelerated everything. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open but untouched. Coffee gone cold for the second time. Outside, the city was waking up like any other day. Inside my apartment, my entire life felt like it was balancing on a single thread. By noon, internal emails were circulating in the press. Messages I recognized. Messages I had read months earlier and archived without comment. Executives asking each other how fast numbers could be normalized. Finance directors discussing temporary reallocations. One email, sent at 2:03 a.m., chilled me when I saw it quoted on a financial news site. As long as Elena doesn't sign off, nothing moves. Find a workaround. I read that line 3 times. They hadn't fired me for performance. They'd fired me because I wouldn't bend. At 2:40 p.m., my former division head Martin Cole resigned. Or at least that's what the press release said. By 3:10, the truth followed. He hadn't resigned. He'd been questioned for 6 hours and placed under federal supervision. His resignation letter was written by lawyers, not by him. By evening, the board chair's name appeared on a sealed indictment list. 2 VPs vanished from internal directories. The compliance head who wouldn't look at me in the conference room had turned state's evidence. And then came the call I never expected. Elena, Halvorsen said later that night, we need you in person. They flew me to DC the next morning. No handcuffs. No interrogation room. Just a quiet office with neutral walls and people who finally listened without interrupting. For 8 hours, I walked them through everything. Not emotions, not opinions. Just facts. I explained how the transfers worked, why the timing mattered, how the same law firm appeared in shell registrations across 4 countries. I showed them how Helix used legitimate acquisitions to bury illegitimate movements, how quarterly audits were gamed by rotating visibility, so no single analyst could see the whole picture. Except I had, because I had rebuilt the system from the inside years earlier. When I finished, the room was silent. One of the senior investigators finally spoke. Do you realize, he said slowly. That without you, this would have continued another decade. I nodded. I'd realized that months ago. 3 weeks later, Helix Dominion Group collapsed. Trading halted permanently. Assets seized. Subsidiaries sold under supervision. A $10 billion exposure officially confirmed, though privately they admitted it was likely higher. The firm that had once boasted about unshakable stability became a case study taught in business schools under a different name. What happens when you silence the wrong person? As for me, I didn't go back. I was offered consulting contracts, advisory roles, a permanent position within federal oversight. I declined most of them. Not out of anger, out of clarity. I took one role instead, quiet, behind the scenes, helping design systems that made this kind of manipulation harder to hide. Less glamorous. More important. 6 months after I was escorted out, I walked past Helix's old headquarters. The logo was gone. The lobby dark. The marble floors polished but empty. I stopped for a moment, not to celebrate, not to grieve, just to acknowledge something simple and true. They thought power lived in titles, access badges, and corner offices. They never understood that real power lives with the person who refuses to lie, even when it costs them everything in the moment.